Welcome to the Tennessee Real Estate Commission December meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask Executive Director Caitlin Maxwell to read in the record our public disclaimer. Please.
Okay, notice of the December 7th meeting of the Real Estate Commission, including date, time, and location, has been noticed on the Tennessee Real Estate website since October 19th, 2021. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, December 2nd, 2022. And now I will call the roll. Commissioner Joe Begley.
Here.
Commissioner Jeff Diaz.
Here.
Commissioner DJ Ferris.
Here.
Chair Marcia Franks.
Here.
Commissioner Steve Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner John Moffitt.
Here.
Commissioner Joan Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stacy Torbett. Commissioner Kathy Tucker. You have a quorum?
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Commissioner DJ Ferris if he would lead us in a prayer and lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this day you've created. You've laid it out for us all to be in, and we have now arrived upon it, and we ask that you guide us in our day, and may you receive the glory. Thank you for the state of Tennessee, all of our residents. Help us to make decisions that are thoughtful and wise and prudent. We again ask for your glory. Thank you for this Christmas season. Since it's in your Son's name I pray. Amen.
I'll stand, please.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ferris. So the first thing is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add or edit? Seeing none, is there?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Diaz and a second by Mr. Moffitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And now to the approval of the November 9th, 2022 minutes. Were there any additions or edits for the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve by Mr. Diaz and a second by Ms. Smith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. So first up, we have some informal appearances. And Ms. Maxwell, if you would give us a little synopsis of these candidates, please.
Sure. The first candidate is Mr. Brett Fetters, who is on the team's meeting. He is here with his principal broker, Chris Claybo, who is also present on Teams. Mr. Fetters has taken the Tennessee Real Estate Timeshare Salesperson exam. The firm is Wyndham Vacation Resorts, Inc., Nashville, and a summary of the criminal and disciplinary sanction is felony harassment. Mr. Fetters' statement and a letter of recommendation can be found on your iPad.
Okay, so well, how this is going to work is first we'll hear from Mr. Fetters, and he can tell us whatever he would like to tell us about how he got here today, the circumstances around the felony harassment, and a little bit about how his life has changed. And then we'll go to his principal broker, who can tell us whatever he'd like for us to hear. And we can ask questions, Mr. Fetter. When you finish, we'll ask you questions if there are any from the commissioners. And then after the principal broker, we can ask your broker questions. So welcome, Mr. Fetters. We're glad you're here. So let us know what it is that you would have us to hear about your case, please.
So 8 years ago, I was convicted of felony harassment, King County, Washington, at Seattle. This stemmed from a fight that I got in with several years ago. What it was I violated a Washington no contact order. Back then, I was drinking a lot. Since then, I've been a member of AA for over 7 years, and I've been sober for 7 years. I don't see this happening again. I regret that it happened, but again, alcohol was a major factor in this.
Any of the commissioners have questions? Could you explain a little bit to us what, I wasn't even sure what felony harassment was.
What it is was, I was in a bar in Seattle. The guy that I got into a fight with several years before, I had a 5-year no contact order. It was less than 5 years. He came to the bar, and of course, back then I was drunk, and I threatened him. I didn't hit him or anything at that time. I just threatened him and told him to get out of the bar.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Diaz?
Mr. Fetters, it says here you were working at the Century 21 in Bellevue, Washington. Did you try to?
Correct.
Did you try to obtain your license in Washington State?
No, I was not a real estate agent. What I was doing is I was doing lead generation. I'm blind in my left eye and have been for several years, so I don't drive cars or anything like that. So, I need to be working in a stationary position. That's one of the reasons that I applied with Wyndham. But there I was doing lead generation, and then that Century 21 office had some internal problems. I was then recruited out of that office by Travis Neubauer, who's the senior vice president of Fairway Independent Mortgage in Bellevue. And I did the same thing over there, lead generation, for a few years until the mortgage industry fell apart in September, and I was laid off, and I had been working in Nashville, Tennessee. My wife and I moved to Tennessee in June of this year.
Thank you.
And so, Mr. Fetters, what exactly will you be doing for Wyndham?
I will be doing what's called in-house sales. These are people that have already purchased through Wyndham, and are looking for upgrades.
Okay. Another question from the commissioners. Okay, so let's hear from Mr. Claybo. If you'll just let us know about how you know this man, how you train them, and your oversight, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good morning. He actually has came to our company about a month ago. He went through our internal program where we do our background checks, where he passed through that. He then passed his 2-week training class, and for the last couple of weeks, he's been shadowing, waiting for this approval so that we can get him back on the floor and doing some business. He will be on my team. He is in, like you said, our in-house sales side. That is the side that I work on as well. So he'll be under, I'll see him every day, and he has a leader already assigned to him where he will have full-time. He's got a team of 7 that he's on, that he'll have full help through his starting of his career.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Mr. Diaz?
Mr. Claybo, the environment that Mr. Fetters is going into, is this going to be a remote work environment, or is this an office environment?
It's an office environment. He will be 5 days a week in our office, closely with myself and his manager.
And how many people are on this team you supervise?
Well, I'm on that side of that. So we probably have, I think we have just short of 20 folks on my side, and he will be on the team supervised by 7, or with 7, supervised by 1.
Okay. So of those there's I guess there's 4 or 5 subgroups then under you, or is that?
Yes, we have actually 3 teams of 7, and we're actually, with this training class, it'll be back up to a little bit higher than that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Claybo? Any other questions for Mr. Federer? All right, all right.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Ferris and a second by Mr. Diaz. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Good luck to you, Mr. Federers. I hope you make Mr. Claybo proud.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. You folks have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next we have candidate B.
Yes, and I'm not positive. Is Crystal in Theracod present? Okay. We received a late notice that she might not be able to attend today, and so I'll continue to check in, but would suggest that we just move forward with the next.
Okay. All right, so the next is a waiver request, and it was to be at 9:30. Is it okay to go on, or should I skip over that?
I believe we can go on. I'm not positive that they're going to appear. This is a waiver request asking that the commission waive the 1-year retest requirement, which is under the rule, which states once a license has been expired a year, a licensee must retest and reapply and meet current education requirements.
That's the situation in this case, that this person's been expired for longer than a year?
Correct.
Okay, so I know in cases in the past, and we had one last month actually, we realized that we don't really have any way, or the statute doesn't allow us to do that. So unless you want to have some discussion about it, or if you want to take a vote, I know last month we didn't take a vote because of that situation.
Well,
Mr. Diaz, you look like you have a question.
I do. I just want to understand the timeline of events and how his license became suspended in the first place. He seems to say that he renewed his E&O insurance, but because of an admin error, it wasn't credited to his license, and that's why his license was suspended. And all that kind of stuff. Do you have any more information about that?
Yes. So, and this item was sent yesterday, but it is on everybody's iPads. So I can kind of help walk through the timeline.
I think he was tying the E&O to the same date as his license renewal, is how it looked to me.
So I did our normal waiver request where you can get a quick overview of his license, and then at the very end I included sort of our interaction and then a quick timeline of events. So this licensee was suspended on the 2021 E&O suspension. So the license was actually suspended due to a lapse in E&O on 1/29/2021. And at that time, by law, we're required to send a letter to the principal broker, which in this case, that is this individual. And then we're also required to send one to the licensee at the firm, and then one to the main address that we have on file. So on 1/29/2021, the E&O insurance was expired. And then on 2/9/2021, the firm license expired. I did not find where there was any payment made for the firm license. So that license expired at that time. And then in March of 2021, the licensee did go online and was able to pay for their renewal. The questions, so the system is not intuitive enough to know, like, we can't accept this payment because of the status. So he was able to go on and pay. We do have a couple requirement questions to try to prevent people from renewing without all requirements, but if they answer yes to all those questions, they can still proceed. So the questions are, do you currently have active E&O insurance? Do you currently have an active firm affiliation with an active principal broker? And then a question about, do you currently meet there's the firm, and then the education is the third question. And so you would have to answer yes to all of those in order to be able to proceed to renew the license. So in March of 2021, he paid the renewal fee for his individual license.
And answered yes to all those questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he would have had to
Right,
in order
to renew.
to renew. And then he began reaching out to us in June of 2022 this year. And I do believe part of his frustration is that the person that he spoke to saw that the E&O was suspended and communicated that. And then he reached back, and then we communicated further at a later date. Your license has been expired over a year.
So all these communications happened after his license expired for the year?
After the 1 year.
Okay.
Did he do any business at 15 months?
Oh, you home?
So his license, he paid his renewal in March of 21, and he didn't reach back out to the commission until June of 22, correct?
Right.
So for 15 months, what was going on with him thinking he had his license, but not really? Did he collect any commissions, or do you know? Or
I don't know. I'm not aware of any business that was done. So
Not aware either way whether he did or he didn't, because that's not information that the Real Estate Commission would have. So I
But it
I
sounds
think he
like-
was thinking that his E&O was due at the same time that his license was due, and it had already lapsed. And then he answered yes to all the questions, which really shouldn't have been answered yes.
right?
But the other part too is the firm license was expired too.
yes, it wasn't just
He was
the
the principal
E&O.
broker.
It was the firm. Even if the E&O was active, the license still would not have renewed without an active firm license.
And you always go back to it's the licensee's responsibility to maintain their license. So not only do we not have statutory discretion.
DJ,
Vice Chairman Diaz mentioned the clerical possible admin oversight where he's claiming that it was applied to a different broker's number. Does that have any merit? And then also, who is the gentleman that he was communicating with?
it doesn't work here.
Jason M. Smith.
Yeah.
So Jason does work here. He is part of the customer service team. So he's not under my supervision, but he does work for the department and for the division and real estate commission.
Have any, his insurance license?
I have not seen a policy that was submitted prior to June of 2022
In his name.
in his name.
Did he give a license number that he thought it had been applied to? I don't have it on my iPad right now.
It says his correct license number in his submission, but the director says that have a policy in his.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion.
Move that.
Or we don't even have to have a motion, which is probably the better thing to do. Decide to hear it and vote, or we can decide that it's not within our discretion to decide it. Whatever you choose. Just a little warning.
I'll go ahead. I'll just make a motion to deny this request.
Okay. A motion by Mr. Diaz. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Gwynn. Any other discussion on this? All right, the motion is to deny this request. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, so next thing is our Education Director's report. Good morning, Mr. White. He needs a microphone.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission. Happy holidays.
Go to you.
I call your attention this morning to the December Education Report and Agenda.
You want to have the discussion first about that last thing, or do you want to do that separately?
We could, whichever in the.
All right, so let's look at D1 through 40.
Yes, ma'am. I have, for the Commission's approval this morning, I've reviewed all of the new providers, courses, and instructors noted as D1 through D40 for this December agenda morning, and I ask for your review and approval.
Motion approved. Courses D1 through D40.
Have a motion to approve by Mr. Diaz and a second by Ms. Torbett. And also, we need to make sure that we count Ms. Torbett present also on the row.
Yes, I noted you came in during the last waiver discussion. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, is any discussion on any of the D1 through 40? All right. All those in favor of that motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And now, Mr. Rawls, if you would tell us about the course requiring discussion, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission. There is also, well, I also have the instructor to present to you today. Would you like to look at that or go to the discussion?
Let's go to the discussion.
All right.
This discussion doesn't have anything to do with the instructor, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
Let's finish this before we have to go to another page.
The bottom of the page, you'll see the discussion that I've listed. Last commission meeting, there was a course for this provider, Realtors Land Institute, and that course was approved. There was a companion course that came in that's listed here today. For whatever reason, our physical office did not note it, therefore it didn't get put in the system. And the provider, in their best interest, they thought it was approved, and they've given a course on it. So they had a few students, I think, at least one that has taken the course, and so it comes to you today because there was no error, no fault on any one, but we would ask the Commission, or in your estimation, would you be able to approve it, that is, in asking that it be backdated to November, as it should have been on that agenda.
How long is Ms. Hurdle? Is Ms. Hurdle, is she the owner of Realtors Land Institute?
She is the, my understanding is she is, but I think I don't know if she came into possession of it. I believe it was her father in the beginning. And then last year, she's taken the reins over for that position of controlling person for the Realtors Land Institute for Tennessee.
And is she a realtor herself?
I do not know. I think so.
Okay. So, number one, she should have made sure her class had been approved. I think it was her responsibility to make sure the class was approved. But now that she's given the class to someone and has sat through 16 hours, it kind of puts us in a quandary of, do we allow it or not? And so, for that person's sake, you know, I think, you know, we need to have a little discussion on that.
Another 16 hours for you. Go.
Well, one other point with this person, as was indicated to me by Ms. Hurdle, that they are nearing their expiration date. So that's why they needed this 16 hours.
Reason.
So that for their real estate license. So that's also in review.
And I'd like to ask our attorney if we have the purview to backdate things. We've never done this before. I'm just wanting to make sure we're not making a mistake if we allow it.
This one I do think was an administrative error in that they were both submitted at the same time. And I'll just note Ross's process is if you want to be presented on the agenda, you have to have everything to the commission by the 15th of the prior month. That's kind of the order of it.
That's correct.
And I will say, with that being said, I've noticed with CE Broker, there are a few people that cannot maybe operate the way they have operated, because this isn't the first course where it seemed like they might have offered it and before approval, and they reach out to me wondering why the person wasn't getting credit, and they're not going to get credit if this class completion date was before the approval date in CE Broker. On this one, they did submit everything to Ross. It just was mailed here and didn't get here.
That's correct. It was presented to us. It was sent in as providers do courses. It doesn't come to me at first. It goes to our physical office. They handle 22 other boards and commissions, and sometimes in a course of a month, there'll be a course or two that they don't get put in the system so that it shows up in my inbox. And it just so happens this other course did. They sent the money for it, checks. I had them send the cancel checks and so forth. So they paid for it. It just did not show up. And again, I don't think it was anybody's fault. I just think due to the volume of things that come into our office with our physical office, then sometimes these things will happen. It just so happens this time the course was provided. The provider thought that, well, the courses had been approved, although that was not.
What do you do when a course is approved? Do you send an email to the provider saying it's been approved, or how do they know their course is approved?
Yes, the system today, once you've approved the agenda, the system will generate acknowledgement approval letters to those providers.
Okay.
Or it should.
Okay.
And then they know. Then within a week or so, it'll show up on our consumer listing, our courtesy listing on the website for all courses and providers. And then now we have also CE Broker that they'll be sent over to them automatically within a few days of now, whenever that date will be. These will be sent over and be calculated in with their system.
But do we know if such a notice was sent to this provider about their courses last month?
You couldn't have sent an approval if you didn't have the course, though, right?
Right. I don't know if she received it. She just, I think, took it upon herself. Well, she sent those in together. She paid for them. And, you know, through correspondence that I had with her, we'll have the course come up before us on such and such a date last month. And she gave the course thinking that all was good. That's the way I take it, in that, again, it's sort of
it's an honest mistake, but it was a mistake on her part.
I think
so.
I think that's characterized.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, I have a question. When one instructor or provider is asking for approval on more than one class, do they get a separate email for each class, or are they all in one email?
Should be all in one, that they get a letter indicating that Is it 2?
I think it would be 2 because they're separate licenses. Each course is individually licensed.
Oh, that would be.
And so it would be it goes in the mail, and it's a auto-generated letter. As soon as Ross clicks approve, that generates an approval letter.
That'd be 2 approval letters.
So she didn't get the second approval letter because it had not been approved, right? She couldn't have if it's auto-generated.
Assuming it didn't happen. But another thing about that, our system is not perfect. And you all may know that from, various folks who call you. But, its system is supposed to generate these approval letters. But I have found through time that sometimes that just does not happen. We're in the middle of renewals right now. We've had several issues with that, but they're going forward. I've already approved thousands of renewals, at least 1,000. And things happen like this, not exactly like this, but monthly with our system, and I have to go back and sort of red dog it and go back to the physical office, find the courses, find the money, find all that, and then make sure that everything's correct in the system. So I just wanted the commission to understand.
Mr. Glenn?
Just out of curiosity, do you think the date that she gave the course was after the date that she assumed it was approved?
Yes. Yeah. She knew when the last November commission meeting was.
Caitlin, you indicated like it sort of happened before.
No, I probably should have waited to say that. I do think it's a best practice that people should confirm that their course was approved before offering it, because that's kind of like unlicensed,
Right.
That's the same as operating without a license, because these courses are individually licensed. I was just putting that note in there for anybody listening. Best practice would be to confirm that your course was actually approved by the commission, because sometimes you guys have questions that prevent something from being approved. But on this one, I do think she or the provider followed the process to have everything into Ross by the 15th of the prior month.
She
Maybe
just
through
dropped the ball with the letter.
communication knew
Yeah.
that one or at least one of her courses was going to be on the November agenda. Didn't realize that the second one wasn't. I was just doing that as a best practice note that in general you shouldn't offer your course until it's approved.
And I can't recall in my 9 years of this ever happening, so it is an unusual thing.
And I think some things are being brought to light through CE Broker, because I think maybe the way some people have been operating, it's been easier to get by that way without CE Broker.
It just has another set of eyes on it now. Mr. Diaz?
And this is for Caitlin also, if she can do it. If we were to accept this and approve this course, they requested that we backdate it. If we were to approve today, December 7th, is there any harm in December 7th being the day for the licensee, for the system?
Well, yes, because I don't know what the provider would do. I don't know if they would just say, we can offer, you've taken the course, you've completed it, we can, and I don't know if, is it asynchronous or synchronous or?
Yes, it's, I think.
In Ross's process, he puts the date of approval, so he can edit the date of approval. So if you guys said, okay, we're okay to backdate it, in the system, he can set the date of approval as November, what's the meeting, November 9th, 7th, November 9th. And then when the roster gets submitted into CE Broker, they put the course date of completion. And so that's what I have seen just one or two times, is that, let's say y'all didn't approve it till November 9th, they offered the course November 1st. they go in to see a broker, submit the roster that the course was taken on the first, and the record shows up, but the credit that's given is 0. And the reason being that it wasn't yet approved.
And so that's how we caught this one, maybe?
No.
How did this one get caught?
It might have gotten caught that way. She might have tried to submit it and it responded in an error, or she might have realized that her course wasn't in there too.
Did she call?
It wasn't.
Did she call you,
listed.
Mr. White?
She did. She emailed me several emails and went back and forth. I said, "Well, show me your canceled checks and so forth," and she did. And they were actually sort of together with the other course. It's just that our physical office didn't see them, didn't separate, or separated and got in another pile. They found it. We had it all put back in. It was amazingly simple once we put them all together. One other point of order there, once the commission approves today, I go in within a day or so and approve in the system those courses that you approve with today's date. So that's what generates the letter. But technically and legally, I'll defer to legal, once you approve today, those courses are approved and they're ready to go. So whether or not they get a letter or not, however, the letters notice that they are good to go. A lot of times they don't. They'll call me or they'll text me to say, is my course approved? Yes. But this one is just a little bit different. And
So I think this is maybe a helpful time for both the educators and for the Tennessee Real Estate Commission to, not that we want to approve any more or in the future. We don't want this happening again. But I think for this person who has taken the 16-hour class, that, you know, we make some something, you know, where we're fair to that person
Yeah,
too.
I was going to say, could we approve the 16 hours on that person's record and then approve this course effective today? Is there any harm in doing that?
I don't know that we could easily do that because he has to enter the date of approval, and then based on that date of approval, when they go in to submit when the credit was taken, it's not going to give that individual, it's going to show up as 0 if they took the course before it was approved.
Well, it's just I mean, it's all.
We can override it.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a how you maneuver it.
Shell game.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we'll approve it today, and could we tell this individual it was one person, right?
I think what the person was worried about,
But
which if the commission maybe approved waiving their late fee, that would be another way to go about it. I think this individual was concerned that they were right before their renewal, so they took this course, the licensee that is, and then if you take your education late, then you renew late, and then you have a late fee. Does that make sense?
It still seems unfair to that person.
Are we sure that there was just one student in the class?
I think that,
Or is it just one student that was
I
close
can't
to
imagine one
This
student
is-
in a
this-
classroom class.
for this one student, it affects them directly because of their agent expiration date.
Renewal.
There could have been other students, but those could be, and, you know, I've advised them that, well, you can't, you know, at this point, I'll be able to take, you've given the course, but you can't submit them to CE Broker until, you know, this thing is approved, this entire course is approved. So if it affects those, there's a fail-safe for those.
But we can't
But
do it
this
for
one-
one and not all of them, I think. I
Right.
feel like.
Yeah, let's just. I mean, can we just approve all those people and approve the course for today? And it was an error.
And my question is the first question I ask: is this something that we can legally do? Do we need to come back to this after our attorneys
I think-
maybe call
I think-
upstairs or something?
I think our former chair would say, let's do it until somebody tells us that we can't.
Don't like that at all.
So can we do this?
Mr. White, if I could ask, I want to build the record out of here a little bit, and I want to ask you if the opposite circumstance has been true, where courses have been submitted, they've missed the deadline, it's been presented, it's been offered to students, and then find out later that the course hasn't been approved because the instructor hasn't done any of the steps necessary to get the course approved. Has that circumstance ever been presented to you?
I can't recall anything quite like this one. There's always different circumstances, yes, but I can't. This one is sort of stands alone in that if they don't get the courses into me by my 15th of a month, then they're not going to go on the agenda for today. So,
But they did on this.
But they
instance.
did. This, yeah.
Right. I just want to. I want the record to show the extraordinary nature of this.
yes,
So that this commission or future commissions aren't bound to show any kind of grace, which I think we're about to give here for this particular licensee in this particular case.
I think that's well.
And it behooves each of these schools and these educators to make sure. And I know there's been a couple of times that right before a conference, the day before, we've had to approve something. And don't be cutting it short with us like that, because that's going to cause a problem, especially at a conference when you've got 200 people that are going to take this class, and then Trek doesn't approve it, and then Trek becomes the bad guy. So everybody's got to do this timely, because it's all laid out. Everybody knows what the rules are, and they got to be the rule followers. So, is there any more discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion? But we have a question.
That I understand. So right now, whether or not they get a notice, D1 through 40 on this current list is approved.
Yes.
That's correct.
So they know this is all public. Okay, this list is public, so it's approved.
Yes.
So the one that we're talking about now was never on the list.
Wasn't on the list because, again,
You didn't
I
have
don't
it.
find faults, but it wasn't before me to review. Didn't make it into the system, and it got somehow separated with the tons of work that the physical office does and didn't get included. But the cancel check, the course itself, I have all that now after to be sure that it was here. It just wasn't clocked in.
So if the provider was paying attention, okay, when it was not on the list, he or she should have said,
They should have called immediately or emailed.
this was not here, because they can listen to this meeting and they can read off our website, correct? Okay. So that's
It's
painful.
It's a
That's
two-way.
where the flaw is.
There's two flaws.
Yeah.
There was two
They
errors.
made one and we made one.
Yeah, and so let's don't penalize the licensee holder. Let's approve it as of today and approve their 16 hours as of today. Can we do that legally, counsel?
It's not as
don't
of
think-
today. It's as of the post-dated date.
Yeah, I don't
November
think
7th.
I don't think they can go in and approve it that way. Is what Caitlin's saying.
Yeah.
So
They have to put the approval date in there for the whole class, and it can't be two different dates.
you want a motion, manager?
I'd like a motion.
Take a shot at it. Make a motion that we authorize our education director, Ross White, to amend the record so that this course and this licensee can receive credit for 16 hours already taken.
No, wait a minute. You said this person, so it's for everybody that took the course. We don't know if there's 200 or if there's just one. Okay.
I will restate.
Okay.
I make a motion that we authorize our education director, Mr. Ross White, to backdate this course so that students that have taken this course already receive their 16 hours of credit.
That's a proper motion.
second.
We have a proper motion by Commissioner.
Anna,
Excuse me, Anna.
Can we amend it to this particular one instance?
Has this class only been taught one time, or has it been taught multiple times?
At one time.
Okay.
I would just like, for clarity's sake, I know it's just, I mean, I'm learning about this with y'all. So, I mean, I understand and I don't want the licensee to be penalized like you guys as well, but I also have an issue with the instructor provider believing the course was approved on their own. And so I would like it to be as narrowly tailored as possible for this one particular instance. And I know we're giving this one approvals. I just said.
Would you like for her to suggest how she would like it worded?
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll take a third shot at it, and if she gives me the wide eyes, I know I did it wrong.
She's looking at you now.
All right, so third time's a charm. I'll amend my motion to say to authorize our education director, Ross White, to backdate the approval of this course, subdivision land development, so that students that have taken the 16 hours of course receive the credit.
Okay. Right, and Mr. Ferris, do you still second that motion?
Second that.
Okay, we have a proper motion. Any other discussion on this, Steve?
Question. When you say the word backdate,
No.
the word backdate does
It's the word we were given.
I know it, but it's loose. I don't know if we should say backdate to a date.
November 7th.
To whatever that date is.
9th.
9th? Is that what it was? Yeah.
Because it was.
Is that a friendly amendment, Mr.
Yes,
Green?
that's a friendly amendment.
I'll accept that.
And the second also accepts that?
Agreed.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And now we'll go on to our instructor report. We just have one instructor to approve.
Yes, ma'am. We just want to present that to the commission today for approval.
Motion to approve this instructor.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve this instructor by Commissioner Diaz and a second by Commissioner Moffitt. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
And I just commend you for not throwing anybody under the bus on that. So it would have been really easy. So I appreciate that.
Get that?
Okay. Let's see what it is not. We don't have the. We haven't heard anything from the waiver request person, have we?
No, and I also have not seen where Crystal or her principal broker is on the line yet.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the executive director report. Ms. Maxwell.
Okay, I just have two items for discussion for the commission. One, it seems like it ended up under the education report, but it should actually be under me, and that is the a PSI question review. So through some correspondence, and then in addition, given the time since our last question review, I wanted to bring it to the commission's attention and potentially for discussion that I think it could be a good idea to do another question review of the exam questions. I think Marcia might be the only person that was present for the last time it was done. I've gotten a few emails just about concerns about question wording and difficulty. And then in addition, through our contract, we can do this as often as on an annual basis. It just, up until now, had not seemed necessary. I don't know if you remember, Marcia, I think the last one was probably definitely prior to 2017. Probably maybe even more like 2015 or so.
15 or 16.
And I believe you might elaborate more, but I believe the last time it was done, we had two commissioners present and then included some other real estate agents from other parts of the state that are not on the commission, just to have a well-rounded group It's pretty much, I believe, an all-day event where you go through the exam questions, make edits and changes. And I've reached out to PSI and our contact there, and he's aware that we are ready to do another one of these, and promised to be back in touch with me soon. So I guess I wanted to go ahead and put it on everybody's radar and maybe get everybody thinking about who could be a good fit. And then we can get a date scheduled to do that.
I was, there were two commissioners, Janet DeChara and I, and then we had one person from each of the grand divisions. And they were actually presidents of associations from each of the three grand divisions. And it was good to have 5. If you have more than 5, it's going to take more than a day. Because what we did was we went over every individual question. And of all the questions, there were probably maybe 10 that were totally, I wouldn't be able to answer them. You wouldn't be able to answer them. They don't pertain to Tennessee or Tennessee law. So it was just a cleanup of the test because it affects people's grades and whether they pass or not. So it's definitely time to do it. We just met in a conference room here in this building, and they even brought lunch in for us. And we just sat and we went over every question. Some were like, yeah, that's good. That's good. And then others were like, oh, I don't know about this. And so we would discuss it. And about 10 of them we took off, and then we replaced them with other questions. Steve.
Question. So this is the state test, correct?
I believe it's the state and the national.
It's both.
So how many questions are we talking? In other words, this is a pool of questions, so that if there's, I'm making up numbers, 100 questions on the test, they probably get those questions. They get those specific 100 out of a pool of what, 1,000 or?
I don't know the specifics. I know each exam is roughly 80 questions.
Okay.
But yes, I think it would be a pool, and then I'm sure that they use other like sorting mechanisms to make sure each exam is not exactly the same. And I do believe they even trial some questions, so maybe there's like a couple extra in there that you actually don't get scored on. But I think there's all sorts of test analysts that are constantly reviewing questions and the way that they're worded. But this would be an opportunity for some of our commissioners to look at it and throw out some questions that maybe are not pertinent to Tennessee or that we feel like are not applicable to the exam.
There be a way to get some stats from them on kind of how they go about moving questions in and out? I don't know if it's relevant. I mean, I don't know how often, like if the pool is 1,000, does it change every month? Does it change every year? How do they move questions in and out and tweak them? And these are professional testing people. That's what they do for a living, right?
Yes, yeah. And I do know with the national, it's accredited through Arillo. And I want to say there's only about 5 states that are not part of the accredited program. And that's really a benefit just for reciprocity and for going to another state, because if their exam is accredited. So I think all of those factors come into play. But yes, I can ask all that, and I'm sure that will be part of whoever is in that review process will kind of get that information, and they have their staff that are these test experts.
And it might behoove us to they can not Zoom, whatever it is we call this, just to kind of tell us, how that works.
Yes.
So we understand it a little bit better. And I'm just talking about a short presentation where we can ask a few questions. And then from that, maybe from this group, I'd like to see, to use the same number again. If you have 20 people in there, it's going to take 20 times longer. So 5, I think, was a very good number. Obviously, they had used that number before. And I know in the past, they were doing it like every 2 to 3 years. So it's time that we do it.
Meaning the commission was
the Real Estate Commission did it with the PSI.
I will volunteer to be on the
Oh, I'm so glad. Okay.
team or whatever.
Okay.
My question is, are they going to review all their questions or just a sample of their questions?
When we did it, there were only, it was like, here's the test. But now it's changed since then with, you know, I think there's, I'm not sure how they would handle it. That's why I think it would be good for PSI to come in and tell us this is how it would work. I would like for us to see all of the state-specific questions probably is what we need to look at more than just the national. Those were not the problem that we found the last time.
I can ask for them to come to the January meeting, and then hopefully at that time they'll also have some date options available. And so in January they can walk the commission through what the process will look like, and then we could probably select a date and solidify who's going to.
They can bring their calendar, and so anybody interested, and then maybe we can come up with names of 3 other, because we need somebody from all 3 of the divisions so that we have a wide representation.
So I would suggest that since we're not meeting in July next year, maybe July would be the opportune time to have that kind of meeting.
Could be.
Since we're not going to be meeting in this room.
It just depends on who's doing it. Let them decide, and when's a room available and when.
Yeah,
is
we have tons of rooms that can fit 10.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be this room just because this room is great because it has all.
Oh no, you wouldn't want this big room.
No. Yeah.
We sat around a table, just, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of rooms in the building that could.
Throwing it out there. I mean, I wouldn't mind looking over it also, but say if we end up with 200 questions or something, would it be good to divide that into 50s and like 2 and 2 and have 3 or 4 groups that hit, you know, here's your 75 questions, here's your 75 questions. And that way we kind of all put an eye on it and do it.
I think they probably want to limit the number of people looking at the exam just for security purposes. I would say it probably doesn't need to be everybody.
Yeah. But be thinking about this so that you can ask these questions when they come. And it's fine with me. I think they are in New Jersey, so I'm fine with them to just have a conversation with us online. I mean, and
for January.
Yeah.
Need to be here. Yeah. Probably just try to do the same. You know, around the time of a meeting, just thinking if you're coming from Memphis.
Right. And then also, you know, their person, we have to coordinate their calendar with them too, so.
And the only concern I'd have with having them on video conferences, if they want to share their screen and show questions, I mean.
Oh, no.
January would just be to tell us the process.
Just an overview of this is what it would look like.
Okay.
There won't be any, I mean, they will be in the room and the people on that committee will be in the conference room together.
Yeah, January would just be to answer questions and
it's
tell the process. Yeah. You probably have to even sign something.
Yeah, I think we did have to sign something. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, won't be any taking pictures of the screens or anything like that, so. But I think January we can get our questions answered, and then we'll know how logistics of it.
The other item that I even hate to bring up is the 2023 Trek calendar. I think we've almost looked at this every month for the last couple months. And this time it is my fault. I was going to see if the commission would potentially be able to, would be okay with moving the May meeting up a day to just be on a Wednesday, which would be Wednesday, May 10th.
So if everybody would check your calendar, that means we would be in West Tennessee.
And we had previously done those Thursday, Friday dates if people wanted to stay over the weekend. But I don't know that anybody has done that in the recent years. And so I was just going to propose moving the May meeting up to Wednesday, May 10th, and then potentially not having a formal hearing that month.
Commissioner Smith, how does that affect the Strawberry Festival?
Listen, y'all, here's the problem that she's not telling you. her sister's getting married and she has to be there. Okay, in East Tennessee. So that's why. I mean, I think this one time.
It's a personal problem, but I would like to
But
be at
she
the
has
meeting.
to be there, and we don't want her to have to drive from West Tennessee to on Friday or whatever.
Just ride with me.
Yeah.
Back
Yes.
to East.
But she would like to be there for the pre-wedding festivities too. So
Really, I probably won't be here on Thursday.
so we're looking.
Where is the meeting in Jackson again? We know that.
Well, we typically alternate between Jackson and Memphis, and so we were in Memphis last year, and so it would be Jackson.
Sometimes we go to Collierville.
Well, why don't we just flip it and meet in East Tennessee in May?
I would really like to be off on Thursday for the wedding.
It can be.
I approve, mate.
Is Wednesday, May 10th okay with everybody? Have you looked at your calendars?
Looks good.
On his adventure.
Which adventure is this? Back to Argentina? Oh.
Okay, so we're going to need a motion to make this change. Would anybody like to make that
I
motion?
make a motion that we change the date in May of 23 to May the 10th, which would be on a Wednesday.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Smith and a second by who?
Me, sure.
What? I missed something. And a second by Ms. Tucker. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all.
Why don't we take, before we get going, is there anything else we need to do before we do the legal report? Is there? Okay. If not, let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and do our legal report. It's 9:35. Yeah, Mooch. You're. So I'm not sure if Miss Maxwell or Miss Matlock have the list of numbers that have been, cases that have been pulled.
I have it, and I bet Anna does as well. But I can call them out.
Okay.
To make sure we have everybody's case. Okay. I have 4, 12, and 29 pulled by Diaz. And then 37 and 44 were pulled by both Diaz and Franks. And then 45 pulled by Franks.
So 4, 12, 29, 37, 44, and 45.
Right.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Diaz.
I'm going to go ahead and let 4 proceed with council's recommendation.
Mark off 4.
On number 4. So we're going to need a motion to approve.
We say those again. 12,
12, 29, 37, 44, and 45. And so we're going to need a motion to approve all the others, if somebody would like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Ferris and a second by Ms. Torbett to approve all the others that were not pulled. Any discussion on anything? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. All right, so let's everybody get it pulled up on your iPads. All right, so the first one's going to be number 12, case number 12, and Mr. Diaz.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about this one. It wasn't in the narrative that I saw, but what happened to the earnest money? Was it forfeited to the seller, or was it interpled? What happened to it?
Yes, it was forfeited to the seller. It's in the second paragraph, about middle way.
All right, I see it. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Like to make a motion?
Motion to accept council's recommendation.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Diaz and a second by Mr. Moffitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. All right, number 29 is also Mr. Diaz.
So this has the words equitable interest in it, and those words jump out at me because it always refers to wholesaling. Is this like a case where there was wholesaling going on, or?
Hey, that was my case. The respondent in this case talks about a Facebook group, a private Facebook group, and I couldn't tell you. You see what he or the respondent mentions about equitable interest in the property, but I couldn't tell you. The respondent referred to it as a private Facebook group. If I may, the case to me hinged on the company name. The respondent says that the DBA for the company was blank real estate, and that's what the respondent was using in the advertising, and that is using a media format that would make any member of the public believe that they're offering real estate brokerage services.
That's where the crux of the problem is, not necessarily the equitable interest.
So so the 1,000, your recommendation is based on advertising violations using real estate in their
or unlicensed activity.
Yeah, the respondent is unlicensed. They're from out of state. They're using a DBA blank real estate in their advertising for property in Tennessee. So it's unlicensed activity and advertising, violation of regulation 1260-02-12 advertising.
But if it's unlicensed, we can't charge them with any other violations, actually, if they're unlicensed.
Unlicensed.
Okay. So that's the crux of it.
I'll make a motion to accept council's recommendation.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Diaz and a second by Ms. Smith. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries unanimously.
I have a question.
Yes,
It's a
ma'am.
general question. So in those instances when it's an unlicensed person and we give them a civil penalty, there's no way they're paying that civil penalty because there's no reason to pay the civil penalty.
Well, they
right? Like,
responded, so we know who they are. A lot of times we don't know all the information. And
if they don't pay the civil penalty, what happens?
Anna, what happens?
If
If
you
they
have
don't
an
pay the civil
unlicensed
penalty.
person that doesn't pay the civil penalty, what happens?
So if they don't pay the civil penalty and we're able to find them, so sometimes we're able to find the individual. And if we are able to obtain service, then we would proceed to a hearing. And then that would be an ALJ alone hearing that you would not hear. If we're not able to obtain service, then that would be a matter that we would have to close and flag. But that would be after we would, we would try and, mail it, obtain personal service after all of those types of things.
So we have this person's address because they responded.
Right, but this person has responded. And so then we would try and find them at the same location. I don't think that would be the same.
And you're right, Ms. Torbett. The direct, if this is an out-of-state entity, and honestly, it's bad and sad that this is the only thing that we can do. But it's better than just saying whatever and have a free for
If they don't
all.
pay, we go to hearing.
Yeah.
And this is an offer to settle.
Right, and it's an offer of settlement. So.
Thank you.
Okay, so
To 37,
all right,
Madam
we're on to
Chairman.
number 37, and that is Mr. Ferris, I believe. Who was it? I have
It was Diaz and
Oh,
Franks.
I have DF written down instead of DJ. D and F. Okay. Okay. Mr. Diaz.
Let's see. Okay, so this I would only want to change possibly to fine, and make a motion that we up the fine to $1,000 and give them a contract scores.
The civil penalty.
The civil penalty to $1,000 and require them to take a contract course that doesn't count towards their continuing education.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay.
Along with
180 days.
And a contracts class. And $1,000? Okay. Would someone like to second that?
You got it.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Diaz to increase the civil penalty to $1,000 and a contracts class, and it's seconded by Mr. Moffitt. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Good question.
Yes.
How many hours?
Contracts class is it's
Ross. Contracts class is what, 3?
Typically,
it's usually 4.
I'm pretty sure historically it's been 4.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, because they could find a 1-hour contracts class from somebody, maybe. I don't know. Let's make it. Is that what you want? 4 hours contract? A minimum of, should we say a minimum of 4 hours? In case it's 6. Okay, 4 hours. Okay. Did we vote?
We did.
Okay, okay. All right,
44.
so now we're on to number 44. And that was also Mr. Diaz and I.
Actually good with
Just a minute.
One with a different last name? Did they have a reason why they used a different last name? That's what I was.
Well, here, yeah, because it's like one of my agents got married, and I told her, you know, if you're going to use your married name, then you have to change all your advertising, and so she decided to stay with her unmarried name. So,
Respondent in this case did not. They didn't respond.
oh, so there's your reason. Okay, so so
you're good with council's recommendation?
yeah, I am. Okay, here's what it was. Is 44 and 45 seem to be the same case?
Yes, they are.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah,
So it's 2 different instances?
No, same incident. The 44 involves the agent, and 45 involves
Principal
the
broker.
principal
Oh, okay.
broker.
Okay.
And
Okay, so let's take the first one first. So we have $1,000 civil penalty for number 44, and do we have a motion?
So motion to accept council.
Accept council's recommendation. Okay. Okay, so I have a motion by Mr. Diaz and a second by Ms. Torbett to approve council's recommendation. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. That motion carries unanimously. And then the next one, number 45, is the principal broker.
Same thing, they didn't respond either?
the principal broker actually did respond. Yes.
It's a failure to supervise.
What was council's recommendation based on? Was it on
It was,
failure to supervise?
based on a
Advertising.
Yeah.
violate. Yes, advertising. 1260-02-123B.
And I only pulled that to make sure I had missed that one was of the principal broker and one was the affiliate. So would somebody like to make a motion on that one to accept council's recommendation? Okay.
I have.
Okay, 1 second. Mr. Quinn.
What was the $500? The agreed citation was for. Do we offer them 500 and they didn't pay it? So now we're going back for 1,000.
Yeah, it was probably a bit confusing the way I wrote that, and I'm going to try to be more clear moving forward. But that's actually referring to the previous case, the number 44. The respondent in the previous case that we discussed didn't respond. Then they had been issued a $500 agreed citation. Then they did not respond to that.
They didn't pay.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So they still owe the 500, or do they now owe 1,500?
Well, they didn't respond to the agreed citation,
That's a different.
that's. I mean, we don't have a response to either. So the agreed citation. I don't think.
It kind of, I think, well, typically if they respond to the agreed citation and don't agree, then we move it on to the legal report and then it gets presented to you guys. The agreed citation is kind of like the first settlement offer.
So for
Will they
here,
now owe 1,500?
no. So I think in this particular instance, it would be the $1,000 civil penalty.
Okay, so I have a motion.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking. Because the
It
reason
was an advertising violation.
I know, the
and
reason
now it's a
I know
failure to respond.
I'm confused because when you don't respond to an agreed citation, it gets referred to our office. It gets referred up to legal. And then at that point, it's a complaint. And if it's a complaint, you're supposed to respond to complaints. And they didn't respond.
The specific language of the statute says that when that happens, when you don't sign the agreed citation or submit a response, that the commission will review the complaint based solely upon the complaint allegations.
So I think it would just be the advertising complaint. So I think.
So that $500 advertising has now gone up to 1,000.
Yes, I think it would just be the advertising.
Yeah.
It would be for 44. It's an advertising complaint. You hear, not the failure to respond to a complaint.
And because the principal broker is in charge of all advertising, we have the second complaint on the principal broker.
I have a question. So on 45, the second paragraph,
yes.
The managing broker, is that the new managing broker or the old managing broker? Because it says that they're in the process of transferring firms.
That is
it's the complaint would have been opened against. Would have been opened against the principal broker at the time of the advertising violation. So if the affiliate broker is in the process of transferring to a different firm, that principal broker would not be responsible for the violation at the time.
Would the same be true if there was a new?
It's whoever's the principal broker at the time of the.
It's the principal broker at the time of the violation. So even if a new person came in, that person wouldn't be responsible. It would be the old principal broker. The same goes for like E&O violations too. Or
is there a question on the transfer form that says something like there are no outstanding citations or so a principal broker that's accepting somebody doesn't know one way or the other unless the person tells them on their own.
A principal broker that would be accepting a new agent, that wouldn't be necessarily an issue of theirs because they wouldn't be responsible for that issue. Because when we would be looking for who that person is responsible, we would go into the system to track to see who the principal broker was at the time of the incident. So we would go look at the agent's affiliation at the time of the violation, and then we would see who the principal broker was at that time.
That won't transfer to
So it wouldn't transfer to the new principal broker.
But I think that's an excellent point, Steve.
Yes.
Because if I have a new agent come to my office and they've had to leave because of a problem from another one, I can ask, do you have any problems at the last one? And if they say no, I as their new principal broker have no way of determining that. And maybe that is a good question to put on that TREC
I
form.
would think so, because otherwise people are going to, what's going to keep them from
They keep
hopping
moving to
around
moving to moving
and
to moving.
then
No.
just
With their
racking up?
principal broker
I
not
mean,
being aware.
eventually,
The principal broker can do extra due diligence and request like a public records request of the
Oh,
agent.
you're kidding. That's too much. That's too
But
much.
I mean, we do ask the person, like we do ask a person when they come here, like you're responsible for that person's, your license when they're renewing a license, right? So where we have individuals, like I have this issue all the time with errors and omissions issues. So I'll have principal brokers that will say, my agent told me that they had X, Y, and Z, and their agent didn't tell them the truth. But they're still responsible for their agent not telling them the truth because you're the principal broker and that's your responsibility. So if your agent doesn't tell you the truth, that's something that you are responsible for, right? Because you're the supervisor.
So why can't TREC aid principal brokers in this knowledge?
I'm saying we can provide that, but what is to say the agent doesn't lie to us on the form too?
So
what you're suggesting, if we had like individually look up every single transfer, I mean, the number of transfers we get every day is very high.
And I'm not asking that, but what I'm asking is the form that you fill out to get a new license, there is a thing on there that says, have you ever had any...
Right. When you renew a license, when you renew your license, you have to tell us if there's been any disciplinary issues or whatever.
So why could that one line not be on a TREC form, whether they're lying or not? At least me, as a principal broker, could say they checked that they have not had any disciplinary problems, because there is nowhere for me to go on the TREC website to find out if this person has been sanctioned or not.
Discipline is public, and it's also starting to be under the core.tn.gov. So if you like look up somebody's license and then you go down to the bottom, they're starting to add anything that has been included after 2018.
Are we reporting discipline to Arello?
I'm working on that right
Arello
now.
has a database that has discipline, and that's really good if somebody's come from Alabama or Kentucky, that Tennessee would have no way of knowing what discipline they had.
Well, we do, because we get it through PSI.
So it's going to PSI, the discipline.
So I believe what happens is, like, let's just say John Smith is coming from Alabama, signs up to take the Tennessee affiliate broker exam with PSI. PSI is running that through Arello's disciplinary sanction, and then I get a daily email of any alert. So if John Smith had anything on his license in Alabama, I would know. I get it's
That's
not a perfect
invaluable information.
It's not a perfect match because they're giving me anything close. Like they're giving me Jack Smith, but I then review that, and then if it's something that we would consider, I put that in their file.
Just as a principal broker myself, I feel like it's leaving me hung out to dry. That with no way of really determining, I would love either it be on the website or somewhere easily accessible to find out if this person has had any discipline, at least in the state of Tennessee. Now, as a member of Arello, I can look in that database, but I can tell you next June when I'm off of this commission, I won't have the privilege of looking in the Arello database.
I mean, we can add it to the form.
That's what I'm asking.
I mean, I'm just saying, that would be, but again, that's on the licensee to be honest.
Yeah, but it helps me as a principal broker is they did not divulge it.
Right.
Instead of being, like you just said, I'm still responsible, whether I know it or not.
So that requires them to self-report and to tell the truth
right.
for you. But that's just something for you. That has nothing to do with us because we, again, have that information. So if they're not telling you the truth there on that form and they're not telling you the truth again in person, so
It still covers me when I have to come before the real estate commission and say, look, they lied.
I don't think that covers you before the commission on the form.
If they had a violation, it's going to be, like with the E&O, with advertising, with any of those failure to supervise, because this comes up frequently, especially with people that transfer firms a lot. We always look who was supervising them at the time of the violation. So if they had a failure to maintain E&O insurance, but you didn't obtain their license under your firm until, let's just say they got suspended in January and they moved in March. Well, one, we couldn't process it if they were suspended because we can't process that in any other status other than active. But then two, you won't be responsible for what they did in January because they weren't under your supervision.
Well, the only thing I can really do as a principal broker is I can look and find out if they have a license that's a valid license, and I can also have them give me a copy of their E&O. But I have no way of knowing any kind of penalties.
I'll show you on public search now. If you go to core.tn.gov public search, and I can show you this in a break or after the meeting. At the very bottom, there is a disciplinary section, and that's public information. And
great.
We started
public search, then disciplinary.
We started being able to do this after, I think it's January 1st, 2018. So anything that they've been disciplined for after January 1st, 2018 would show up.
But again, I just want to reiterate that a principal broker is only going to be responsible if they're the principal broker at the time of the violation. So it's not going to transfer with an agent. So, like, you're not going to inherit somebody else's responsibility. Unless, if I am affiliated with you at the time, you're going to be responsible. But if I move to Joan's firm, Joan is not going to inherit the responsibility.
And I understand that. I guess I would just like to know if this person has a history of doing advertising,
right? But
anything, especially anything. You know, I would like to know before I hire them if they have.
Two questions. If you were to get a letter from a principal broker that says something like, I'm considering having John Smith join my firm, I'm just checking with Trek to see if there are any outstanding citations or fines unpaid, would you answer that letter? And then the second part of the question is, when somebody, and I should probably know the answer to this, somebody transfers their license, is there a fee that they pay to do that to us? And how much is it?
First, I can answer. I would treat the first inquiry as a public records request. So I would answer that. I would answer that question, and I would let you know that this person has an outstanding complaint, and if there is any discipline, I couldn't give you the, if there is a consent order that hasn't been signed, I can't give you the consent order because that's considered an offer of settlement and that's privileged. So I can't give that to you. But I could give you an excerpt of the legal report and give you like what the commission, a copy of the legal report excerpt, the commission's decision. I could give you that. And yes, there is a fee, and it's $25.
For a public records request?
No, to transfer. Okay. Public records requests are free.
The only thing I wanted to note about that is sometimes we see this, like an agent comes to Marcia and says, I'm moving over to Joan's firm. They have you sign it first, and then they have Joan sign it. I think it's important to check and make sure that they are actually no longer with your firm, because we've seen that a lot, especially with E&O. They get you to sign it, but they never pay the $25, and they never get Joan to sign it. And so we've seen that come up a lot with E&O, and a lot of people don't want to broker release an agent because they view it as a negative. But that's the main way to know that they're completely gone from your firm.
And who would a principal broker contact for that information?
Well, that is also available now on public search. I mean, we
Okay.
have all the related parties.
Okay.
So you could see they're still with your firm.
And while we're at it, can I see which Keller Williams company that, I mean, if you look up someone's license, it says Keller Williams. It doesn't tell me.
So
I don't know who the principal broker is.
So there's a way to get that information. One, under the individual license, there's the related party. So it's got the firm name. It's got it doesn't have the full address, but it has the city, the county, and the zip. That doesn't help you?
Well, that's a lot. I mean, there's a lot in Nashville, or there's a lot in Franklin.
They should
The zip would help, though.
have their DBA too.
Okay.
And then from there, if you look up that firm, under the firm, it shows you who's the principal broker and all the agents with that firm. It's under core.tn.gov in the top kind of left-hand, or sorry, in the top right-hand side, it says public search. And I can show you in a second. A lot of people still want to use Verify. Verify is going to be delayed because it's a code written to extract the information. Public search comes directly from Core. So if you renew your license and you get a future expiration date, it's going to be immediately updated here. So this is the most up to date because it's coming exactly out of Core.
And I know that at least my association, Williamson County Association of Realtors, have put that out several times for people because they've gotten confused about where to inquire now about licenses.
People still want to go to Verify,
Yeah,
and you can.
used to.
It's just not going to be quite as updated.
Yeah. Okay. Somebody had a question somewhere.
Well, Madam Chair, I was just wondering if we can go back to case number 45 and finish that.
Yes. I have a motion by Ms. Smith, and I do not have a second.
I've got some discussion for that. Is
Okay.
the respondent in 45, were they the broker on record when the advertising violation occurred, or are they the new broker?
They should be. If they're not, the complaint will be closed and we'll open it against the correct one.
Okay.
That's how it always works.
They could respond and say, I was not.
Right. So like if it's not like what I just like want to make it clear. Like what this happens sometimes, like if we ever find out that it's not the correct person, we'll bring the complaint back, make the recommendation that this is the incorrect principal broker. Recommendation. But it should be the correct principal broker in this instance.
In this case, the respondent, the principal broker, responded to the complaint. Why? It should be.
I think also sometimes people get confused about managing broker and principal broker.
Well, we don't have managing brokers in our systems.
I know.
Care about that.
I know.
Madam Chair, I call the question.
All right, we have a call for the question, and the motion is by Ms. Smith and seconded by Ms. Torbett that we accept council's recommendation of a $1,000 civil penalty. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries unanimously, and that completes the legal consent agenda report for December.
I have one question.
Okay.
I have one question or suggestion. And I spoke with Caitlin.
You're not on microphone. Speak.
If we could have, if we have two complaints that are related or go together, if they could be back to back in our forms, I think, in fact, I had a question about number 17 and 21. It appeared they were the same, but they were separated by 4 or 5 numbers. So if we could have those close together as we read them, that would be helpful. If that's a problem,
I think the problem comes in that Anna does some, and then Jeff does some.
Yeah.
And so to integrate, or for him to know or her to know,
They're usually assigned to the same person, but we can make sure. Yeah, we can.
there's some more emphasis on getting it to the same person would help.
That's a.
it's. Thank you. Well, I read one, and then I thought, well, wait, I just read that, but it was several cases over.
Can fix that.
Thank you.
Like there were just some duplicates this time.
There were some similars, but not duplicates, I don't think.
And that's what brought this.
I think there were duplicates, a few of them. So I want to say, Caitlin, we've said it before, but like you're quiet and don't say much, but behind the scenes, our processes are getting so much better.
Yeah.
And even when we're asking questions, you know, you've usually got stuff. You're usually a step ahead of us. I want to say thanks. You know, everything's running efficient. Having the PSI stuff from other states is great. Having this new public search, which I wasn't even aware of because I'm not a broker anymore, managing agents. But, I mean, we're getting better every day. She seems to be working stuff quietly every day. I want to say thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate
I'll
that.
appreciate you. We all do.
We're going to do a newsletter that hopefully will go out before the middle of December. And so we'll make sure, Ann and I just message each other about making sure that we include a blurb about public search because we do have E&O suspension coming up. We've got education renewals coming up. A couple of things that it would be helpful for people to know that that's out there.
Okay, so we're on to commission discussions.
Can I add
Yes.
one more thing? It's just to piggyback off of the rulemaking hearing from
Yes.
last week. So I received a couple of comments via email related to the timeshare rescission rules, and I just wanted to read those to you guys to see if you had any comments. I haven't submitted the rules yet to the governor's office because I've been waiting for the transcript from the court reporter. So in the effort to preserve everything for the record, I just wanted to submit they're very brief, and to see if you wanted to make any comment to them, especially since
Can we
they're-
take them one at a time then?
they're both very related and from the same person.
Oh, okay.
So these are one comment from Mr. Leonard Luber. He works with Greenspoon Martyr LLP, which is a law firm in Florida. And so this was written originally to Caitlin, but I responded back. And so it says, Dear Caitlin, I'm writing to ask you about the formatting for disclosing the new right of rescission via email. A copy of the rule is attached. You will see it states in paragraph 1 that the statement from the rule must appear as written, and that's in quotations. What does as written in quotation mean? Does it mean we just have to use the same words, but we can put the 3 options in one paragraph, or must we separate them into 3 paragraphs as shown in the rule? The reason I ask this question is because breaking it up into 3 paragraphs takes up a lot of space, and I don't know that we can fit it into the first page of the contract above the signature block as is required. And then they provide a preference of the following language in bold and conspicuous type. And then the next comment they had was to ask if the rule requires the rescission notice to be in bold face and conspicuous type. Bold face we understand, but I'm not seeing a definition for conspicuous type. Do we have any guidance on that? So if you remember in the rule text, it had 1, 2, and 3 as delineated. And there is not a definition for boldface and conspicuous type. So any general comment?
You know, I'm thinking that what's like a fancy script would not be conspicuous. But a bold face makes it stand out from the page, and that's what we're looking for.
I would say boldface equals conspicuous? Why not?
Just
Simple.
because
Because they could put a fancy script boldface and you can't hardly read it.
But then you start talking about font size and all that kind
I'm
of
sure
thing.
they've got the rest of their contract very, whatever font they're using is conspicuous.
Well, I would say,
there's a reason why they call it
I would
fine
guess
print,
that the contract is going to be in a font that's legal looking, so you're not going to look at a script thing or anything. So the boldface would be boldface of the font that you're using for that contract, whether it's Times New Roman or whatever.
For me, the purpose of the rule is to pull out the rescission language so that it stands out for the consumer, not for the vendor. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you can put the rest of the contract language in a font size and font type that you want, but I think this rescission language probably should be treated a little bit differently because it's for the consumer and not for the timeshare provider.
Text box.
I don't think we need to go that far. I mean, word processing software is pretty strong and endemic. Everybody has it. We're talking about highlighting and clicking. We're not talking about somebody using a composing stick for a print press. So,
and the problem of their getting it all on one page, that's not our problem. We're only asking for the three lines. Whatever else that they're putting on there, that's their verbiage. So maybe their lawyer can wordsmith it to where they can fit their language in there, but ours is set in stone. They've got to put it.
I'm okay. I'll give them the latitude to not necessarily have to separate into 3 paragraphs, as long as the language stays intact.
Yeah.
If they want to put it on several lines, they can do that and put it in bold. And if bold, I would whatever boldface is used in a Microsoft word processing software, I would say that's okay. Font size, 12 to 14. And if they want a font type, I'd say Times New Roman or Arial.
And let me. I don't think we should tell them what font to use, but I do think. How many of you have ever seen a timeshare contract? They are not short, little bitty contracts. They are big contracts. So I'm not worried at all about the number of pages or they got to run to the next page. It just needs to be bold and it needs to be clearly visible where anyone of any intelligence level would see it.
Back in red.
Hey, we could
Make 'em
make
put
it
it
a
in red.
requirement to be on its own page with an addition
Well, no, they've got to sign it.
or signing spot. I mean,
Commissioner Ferris, make sure it's
Missionary.
I said commissioner.
Oh.
Thank you. I would say that would make that suggestion for timeshare contracts to have it. Yeah, to have these 3 items live on its own page with a signature page, and that way it's
Then we'd
and
have
it's
to amend
bold.
the rule.
Oh, would we? Okay.
I'll tell you what I wrote back since Commissioner Begley requested. To answer a question as written means exactly as written in the text of the rule. That means you would separate the rule into the 3 paragraphs as shown in the rule text below. And to respond back to boldface and conspicuous type, I stated the red line of the rule does not contain a definition for conspicuous. That portion of the rule is not changed and carried over from the previous version. Therefore, we'll defer to the plain meaning of the word. So in contract interpretation, when there's not a definition for a word, you defer to plain meaning. So definition of conspicuous, whatever it means. So I was, they're not looking for like a specific font or anything of the type of what it means. I just wanted to know if there were any particular comments related to it. Yes, they understood boldface. The question was more so of conspicuous.
If it's bold, then it's probably conspicuous.
Yes. And the comments that I received were fine. I think you guys understood the assignment, so
We appreciate the comments, but I don't see anything, in my opinion, and I'm just one person, that needs to be changed. I think we can continue as the rule as it's written.
thank you very much.
Anybody else have any comments about that? All right, so we're going to move on to commission discussion. Does anybody have anything you want to bring forward for the commission to discuss?
Well, I'll go ahead and restart this topic because I think we lost it in previous months, but talking about a commission retreat of some sort. I think staff, we'd asked, what the logistics would be and what legal ramifications it would be related to sunshine law about having such an event and things like that. So I don't know if we can proceed with that, but we do have several new commissioners coming, and any education we can provide them that will help them with their service, I think would be worthwhile.
And what would you want to accomplish at a commission retreat?
Well, I think, there's, Kathy might be able to, add some information about this in terms of what she would like presented, but I think, the legal report, how that is assembled by staff and what the process that we go through, and things like that. I think, some of the processes that we discussed when we're talking about the case 45 about, what's on core versus what's on verify, the various tools that are available to the public and to licensees as they interact with TREC. I think, if people call us as commissioners, it would be nice to be able to say, well, TREC has this tool that you can go to and be able to say and answer that question so they can get their matters resolved quickly and easily without much back and forth or having to appear in person or anything like that. So just things that have evolved and changed over time that, current commissioners may not be aware of. I would think updating our knowledge would be useful.
Caitlin, do you have anything?
The only way to really get around the sunshine law is to do an executive session. And those are typically, I'll defer to Anna, but are typically for like more emergent type scenarios. So I think we could probably potentially hold an executive session if everybody felt necessary. I don't know if you guys know, but it's very hard for me to get expenses approved around here. So, something sort of like outside or that would involve a high cost might be hard to get approved. I'm not willing to try. But do you think it would be worthy of an executive session? Is there any kind of like, are you aware of any rules around when we can hold an executive session?
I can certainly look into it. But typically executive session is like reserved for when we have like pressing legal issues, if we have like a pending lawsuit, or if there is like an HR matter that we need to discuss of the sort. But I don't know if we have any of our other boards or commissions that have done like a retreat. So I'm not sure how we would, get around the fact of all of us getting together and talking about board business, and it would not be a meeting.
It would have to be on something that we don't vote on.
Well, I mean, any convening and talking about board business is considered a meeting.
But if they're, it would have to be open to the public.
To the public, so it would be a retreat where everybody could come. So,
and when you say retreat, are you talking about something in this building in a room?
I wasn't necessarily considering it a format. I mean, we could do it by Teams if we wanted to do it and have that link publicized for people to.
I mean, the format is up to you. I'm just saying, like, if all of us wanted to gather and to talk about like board related business or something, it would have to be noticed and it would have to be open to the public. There's not really a way. Executive session is related to a very limited
Specific topic.
topics.
So if we check all the boxes, like if we say, okay, we're going to have a Teams meeting for the Tennessee Real Estate Commission for the purposes of,
right,
and
so
have that agenda.
If we were to do if we had an agenda, we noticed it, people were, and it would the Teams link and all of those things were other people were allowed to come and those things, it could probably happen.
I'm thinking that mostly from commissioners in the past, I think there's a lot of things that commissioners don't understand until they've been here a while. A lot of them is, for instance, expenses and money and what is that approval process. And no, Caitlin can't go into that $1 million fund. Well, why can't she go in the $1 million fund? Those kind of things. So I don't know if that should be a public discussion or not.
Is this a training session or is this?
That's why I said, what is the?
It would be, yeah. I would call it education. I would call it education. You can call it commissioner training. I just think that there's, in the discussions that we've had in this meeting, where commissioners are wondering about process and how things are done and why things are a certain way, could probably be answered in a setting where it's just staff. And it's, well, not just staff, but it's the staff working through an agenda to explain to the commissioners about various processes and use that time in that retreat to answer those questions rather than taking up the time in this meeting or another formal hearing on a second day. I just think it would, and then, as commissioners come and go, maybe we can kind of spread that information and share the wealth so it doesn't have to happen every time there's a new commissioner. But you lose that institutional knowledge as commissioners roll off, and that institutional history. It'd be great if we could replenish that as new commissioners come on and we can bring other commissioners up to speed that way.
I think it's definitely something that we can look into, and I think it would be helpful to know, like you mentioned a topic, but if there's specific topics that everybody was looking for, that way we could be prepared and have the information that would be helpful to everybody.
We used to have every January someone came in and spoke to us about the Sunshine Law,
Okay.
and some of us had heard it many times. But listen, I've taken that knowledge back to my little city in Williamson County and said, you cannot be having these meetings. It's against the Sunshine Law.
If you want me to do a presentation on the Sunshine Law, I can give you a presentation on the Sunshine Law, Open Meetings Act, and Public Records Act. I can do that at the next meeting. More than happy to do so. But, if we want to do this, I need to know what topics we want to talk about. So, if the commission will give us a list of topics, very specific topics, I'm talking very specific, what we want to talk about, then I can talk to
How about we
other
just say,
people.
we need you to tell us, explain to, because in the past we didn't give what specifically we want to know. We had an attorney come in and tell us all about the Sunshine Law.
I'm not talking about Sunshine Law. I'm talking about Commissioner
What was the one
Diaz
you
had-
mentioned just a minute ago? The
Commission-
topic.
I mean, like financial stuff.
Oh, panel.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
if you want me to do the Sunshine Law, public meetings, all of that, I can do that. We can do that. But Vice Chair Diaz was talking about other topics, the legal report, other kinds of things that would not necessarily be in that presentation.
Yeah.
So if there are other specific topics that you wanted to have outside of that, if by, let's say, next meeting, the commission could give us a listing of the very specific topics that you wanted to talk about. In the interim, I can go and see what, if anything, we can do to talk about those.
An example is we were at dinner last night, and I mentioned Commissioner College, and a lot of the people didn't know what that was. So I think that's something that's important that all commissioners have.
I was actually going to just mention that
Oh.
it's typically at the annual conference, at the Arello conference. Now that's not specific to Tennessee, but Joan, you took it upon
Wow.
yourself, and she took all of them online.
Online.
Because they do 101 this year, and then next year they do 102. So it takes 2 years to
Do
get
it, yes.
Yeah. But it is something that you can do online.
Yes, and it's if you
Did
wanted.
Trek pay for you to do that?
We
Okay.
reimbursed her.
Okay.
Is the way
That's
we were
great.
able to handle it. So she paid for it, and then we reimbursed her. We might be able to pay for it on the front end, but I know you just took it upon yourself and did it, and so
And
And then found out I could be reimbursed.
Yes.
And I think 9.5 years ago, when I came for my first meeting, I went in a little room with an attorney and a lady that worked here, and she wasn't the executive director or anything. And they said, "Here's your manual, and take your oath." And that's all I got in a way of orientation.
Yes.
And I've thought and I don't even know what you do now, and I've not asked Kathy what her orientation was. But I think the orientation may be something that we really need to look at closely for new members, because I know Kathy well enough that she's really not this quiet. She's sitting and listening because she's smart until she learns the nuances and how things go. And you can only do a maximum of $1,000 penalty. She's learning these things that I don't know. Did you get a manual?
Yes.
Okay.
But the training
So-
is very similar to what probably it was with you, except now we have some virtual accommodations that we can meet. If 8 o'clock is now pretty early to get here and do the.
I know.
so my orientation was that WebEx meeting or Teams meeting or whatever it was, and they went through Robert's Rules of Order and the Sunshine Law and ethics and all that kind of stuff, and then
And it's particularly hard for our public members who are not realtors and don't even know sometimes the lingo.
We can pull from that manual. I know,
Arello has a new commissioner manual also that you can
okay.
get
Let's
for
say
free.
this. I mean, to help Anna, I invite commissioners, in the interceding month here, if they think of a topic they would like help with or more information about, to email it to Caitlin or
Email it to Caitlin and Anna, but don't have any conversation over text messages about it.
Right.
Yes, because I think some of what's in the manual you don't get until you're actually doing it. So it's not that the information given isn't correct. It's just you don't know what is what until you've experienced it. So we could kind of do a refresher.
And to answer your question from earlier, when I looked at you with a blank stare, I was talking about the complaint process, kind of like how the complaint comes in, how's it ushered, I guess, to the appropriate division, and kind of that process of before it gets to us, what y'all go through. Because I think it's important for us to know how much work you do behind the scenes to get to this meeting.
I can do that. I don't think that necessarily has to be something we do in executive session. If you want me to do that next month, we can, but I can also do that in the what we're thinking about. But in the interim, next month, I will see if I can do open meetings, sunshine law, and public record.
That would be good.
We'll start there.
And just the reason why I'm asking for a separate meeting is just because this agenda, has some static items, some items that we do every month, and I don't want to lengthen this meeting too much because people got to get back to their homes and whatnot. And I think a Teams meeting with a number of topics that can be covered, not just the ones that you mentioned, would be useful so that people can participate by teams, stay home, not require us to reimburse for hotels and travel and food and all that kind of stuff. I know putting another meeting on your calendar is, trying to avoid that, but I just think the number of topics that I hope are going to be generated in the next month will probably warrant an independent meeting by team.
And because too is we don't want. I don't think there's anybody in this commission that just wants to fill a seat or to have the notoriety of I'm on the track commission. I think everybody sincerely and passionately wants to be the best commissioner they can be in their time that they're here. And I think that's our reasoning behind it. Steve?
Question. While Caitlin's making a list, it seems like I recall in past months, and you may need to refresh my memory on this, but we have seen I hate to use the word cash flow, but it seemed like there was some kind of a budget or something that you presented as part of your report. And does that only happen once a year? Or
No,
what's happening
I
on
get
that?
it's delayed in getting to me based on our meeting time. But yes.
So if it's a month or two off, that's okay.
Yes.
So, and the other thing that came up several meetings ago, which maybe was unbeknownst to certainly me, is there's some type of an education fund, and I don't know that there was a great understanding of that as far as how did the money get there, what's the intent of it, what we can do as far as spending it or not spending it, or what is actually going on with it. And it seemed like we brought that up, and I don't remember hearing anything about it since. So maybe you could add that to your list and on a separate month or whatever's going on with that. And then maybe having the cash flow as a regular part of our look at the report. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
Yes. Yeah. We can definitely talk about how that money gets in there, what we can spend it on.
How much is in there?
How much is in there?
Yeah.
All of that sort of stuff. Depending on the preference, this could be a public Teams meeting later, or if people preferred, we could break the topics up and do
Monthly.
kind of a monthly update.
Under the commission discussion.
Mm-hmm. We could next month start with the Sunshine Law.
And sometimes we don't know how long these meetings are going to go until we know how many cases have been pulled.
I'd like to make a suggestion for this piece, because it is important. I do think we all can always flesh out these issues better, understand them better. I'd like to know things more. For me personally, I think the best format would be in the monthly meeting, and let's say let's allot 10 to 15 minutes. If it's a light subject, 10 minutes will be fine. We've spent 30 minutes talking about this. So that's good. We've gotten that. Now we've established this is needed. So in January, like on the agenda, after these candidates have their informal meetings, and then maybe there's a waiver request or whatever. Anybody who's online, once that business is conducted, we're in our meeting before Ross's report, have something that says, Commissioner Education, Commissioner whatever, because if I hear something and we discuss it 10 or 15, and it's a set in stone thing, and it's not like an open-ended thing. If it begins to get more than 15 minutes, the chair says, okay, we'll continue this next month. But it might be something that is pertinent to that day that will be fresh on all of our minds, as opposed to a random Teams meeting that is an hour or too long, and it's just we're all on our emails, we're all on our phones, and I'm just, I would think that would serve the commission long term. It wouldn't add another date to the staff. We're all here. I learn better in person. Just an idea.
I think we could try it that way and then see how it goes. And then that way we know you're all here. You've got the time, you've got the date.
And we're going to know that we have, when we get our cases and read our cases, and if I have to pull off 20 cases, I know that's going to be a long day against like today where it was low. And that has a lot to do with our attorneys, and I appreciate our attorneys. Learning us and knowing they're going to give $1,000, we might as well get $1,000 so we can get it on the consent agenda. And so I think we're a lot more in sync, with our attorneys too.
I agree. And I think, pardon my interruption,
No.
is if you have it as a placeholder on the leading edge of the day. We're all fresh. We're putting we're putting the priority first. Now, I know the priority is to be consumer protection agency, which was made real clear in my orientation. So that's kind of the hat I wear when I come into this seat. So that would be my last
So the
remark.
public wants us to be the best commissioners we can be also.
Right.
We can go ahead and do a shell for the agenda for January and February, because I think we have probably like 6 topics here, and maybe try 3 in January, 3 in February, and then see how that goes. And then again, continue to submit topics that you want discussed, and then we can continue to put those on the future agendas.
I know Anna with council would like to meet every other week in person, and so I'm trying to. I know I'm gonna. I'm sorry. I want to apologize about that.
The poker face is bad.
We just need a camera. We just need a camera on Anna's face. That's all.
Anna should never play poker. Maybe not even rook. Okay, so y'all, we're all on the same page about this. I think we're wanting to do as good a job as we can do, and that comes with knowledge. So, all right, so we're going to go around. Kathy, Miss Tucker, anything to say?
I don't really have anything to say. Every meeting I come to, I learn so much, though. But any kind of session that we would have in regard to, a small session about a certain topic, I'm like DJ, I learn better in person. So I think that's great.
Oh.
Happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas, all that.
Casey?
Sorry I was late. I tried my best.
It's okay. Family comes first. DJ? Steve?
Thank you. The only thing I might add for I would go for 30 minutes on DJ's 15.
Because that's how long it's really going to take.
Did you see Anna's face there?
I would not do 30.
Mr. Moffitt?
If we need it, we'll do 2 hours.
Well, I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Safe travels home. Also, safe travels home. But I also say that I took a class this past week with an instructor, and I encourage you, if you needed, I didn't have to have education, but I wanted to go get another designation. So I sat in with an instructor that knows me, and I'm not sure he was as comfortable as he would have been when I walked
Before you were a commissioner.
Before I was commissioner. But it's interesting, and I think it's well played for us to attend those, even if you've got something going on locally for you, just walk in and let them know that you care. I think that's important.
What I said to that, because she told the story last night, I said, one day all 9 of us should show up at a class.
Yeah. And
just sit in the back.
Yeah, you and DJ, y'all are in charge of the jokes in this group. And I would like to thank the people who came today and remind anybody that's watching that you get 8 hours of continuing education when you come to our meetings. In 9.5 years, this meeting is closing sooner than I've ever seen one close. So we got some people hit the jackpot today on their CE. And I wish everyone happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and be safe, and see you all back here in January. And thanks to our staff. We can never thank you enough for all that you do, too. Thank you. And we're adjourned.
We do have